Hello, welcome to the Herb, the IRB version 4.8, the latest update which deals with baking, which is very exciting indeed, very exciting. I had a couple of people ask me if the IRB can be baked, and I said, I don't know. Turns out, yeah, it can, and really easily and quickly, which is an added bonus, which is very exciting because that means that now the IRB is not just limited to Blender, the software it was built in. You can create shapes, create rock faces, cliffs, rocks, boulders, whatever, in Blender, and then with this process you can bake the geometry and take it into something else like Unity or Cinema 4D or something, which means there's loads more fun to be had with the herb, plus more displace modifiers, which we'll get into. But I'm going to show you what the crack is. So when you open Blender, you're going to see this. You've got the IRB here. I've already baked a 4K displacement map and a 4K and an 8K displacement map. And if we go over to render mode, render viewport mode, you can see they look pretty much exactly the same. Pretty much, bit of different. I've put an ambient occlusion thing here for some dust, but other than that, it's the same. But the good thing is this is the IRB, only visible in render, but these two bad boys are visible as physical geometry, as you can see, which means they can be manipulated further. I haven't decimated this, so it's still quads. And to be honest, between 4K and 8K, there's not a great deal of difference. So I'd say 4K you can get away with fine. With 4K map, you've got this gap here, but that's not there with the 8K. There's a bit more detail in here, but as I say, when you've when you've baked all of the maps, like the bump map, you don't really see it, so you can get away with 4K. Okay, so let's get cracking with the process. So first of all, I'm going to hide these guys, and so let's say that this is the formation I like. In fact, let's just put something different. Let's take off 6. Excuse me. And let's add a bit of 4.6. Yeah, that'll do. Excuse me, there's a pipe there. Oh, that's not being picked up. Okay, so I'm going to Shift D and duplicate this plane. And again, if we go over to viewport mode, it's just a plane with the IRB, and then we want to click on the cross to get rid of it. We don't need that material over here. So if we look at the IRB now and we net back to render mode, I'll have a sip of my Coke. Back over here in render mode, you know what, I'm going to change that. I don't like the scale of 4. I don't like, so I'm going to take that 0.2. What's that look like? Yeah, and a bit less, 0.4. Excuse me. Yeah, that'll do. So yeah, if you look at in the shader editor, you'll see down here next to the dust for now, there's a new section called texture baking, and very simple. These are all the outputs for the maps that you would need. We don't need object displacement because this is a vector, a tangent displacement jobby, and we've got this one here, which is the image texture node, which gives you a preview of the map that we're going to bake, and then if you want to, it's default UV generated. You've got generated map, normal, object, whatever. You just plug it into this one that says mapping in. But UV, you kind of need it for baking, so I'd leave it at that. And this has already been unwrapped. If I head over to UV editor, and that's an old map, and I press tab, we can see, yes, I think that was just U unwrap. Let's have a look. Yeah, just U and then unwrap. So this is now unwrapped according to Blender. So what we need to do is, and we're in viewport render mode just because we want to see what's going on. So with node wrangler enabled, must have it. Control Shift click tangent displacement, and there you go, that's the displacement, and that's what we're going to bake. So we want to make a new window and change this to image editor. We don't need to see a great deal, and we need to click new, give it a name. I'm going to have to call it something stupid because I've got loads of displacement maps in the folder this will go into, so I'm calling it Dispy. 4096, the 0 key on this keyboard is terrible. That's your 4K map. Again, that's up to you. Excuse me. We don't need alpha, but we do need 32-bit float because this is color information going out and it's pushing geometry up, down, left, right, da-de-da. So we want that. And then press OK. And now we have here Dispy. So the next step is to click the image texture in the shade editor and then choose Dispy. Because when you're baking, you need this selected with the right material and this in the right material, and also you need this selected to tell it to bake from this object. Alright, that is all we need to do for that. And now if we head over to render settings, we'll go down so you get to performance. So drop down performance, and then I've already put it in, but under tiles you want the same resolution that you've set for this image. So this is 4K, so I've put 4K in here. And then under bake, you'll see bake down here. From this drop down menu we want to select emit, because we've control shift clicked tangent displacement, it's going through an emission node so that we can preview it. So once you've done that, so just to reiterate, you control shift click tangent displacement, that's what we want to bake. Select that, make sure you've got the new image in here that's called the same as what's in here, and then you're ready to bake. Oh wait, no, a very important step. Under your sampling, change the render to 1. We only need 1 pass of this to get what we need. We're not dealing with lighting or anything like that, or shadows. We just need the pure color information. So with that set to 1, you just simply click bake, and then sometimes randomly this takes 30 seconds, but most of the time it's very fast. Normally it's done by now, but for this particular time it's choosing to take longer. So I'm going to have a swig of my Coke while I have a wait. I might cut this and then I'll come back. Okay, it baked. It took longer than it should have done, but it baked. It was still only about 40 seconds. So now we can see in the image editor up here we have the baked map, displacement map. So because we're going to use, we could just use this in a new material and then plug it into a vector displacement node into the output, and you get the same result, but that won't work for actually baking geometry, so having the geometry physical. So we've got this image here, Dispy. We need to save it, image, save as, and we want, under the file format, we want OpenEXR and then float full up there. So OpenEXR, float full, I've called it Dispy, save as. Save as. Okay, so now we no longer, well, no, we'll leave that there. But before we do the next step to displace this, I'll just quickly go through the rest of it. So if you, obviously you're going to bake the color. So again, control shift click, and it's you have to be able to, you've got to control shift click this. It's got to be going into the emission node in order for it to know what it's baking. So you have to control shift click this so that you only see the color information. And you do the same thing with this. So you'd make a new image, 4K. It doesn't need to have alpha. It doesn't need to be 32-bit float. It can just be a JPEG or a PNG or a TIFF. And then yeah, make sure this is displaying the new image name up here, and then click bake. You'll get that, and then you can, I would recommend saving it as an external image anyway, but you can just leave it in the software itself and then just select it from, like I've done here, like this drop down menu. But if you want them to stay, then I'd save these images. So yeah, you get your color information the same way. done the tangent. If it's an object formation, use this one. And then bake your bump, bake your bump. Oh, bake your bump. So that's the bump information. Same process. Make a new image, bump, put it in here, bump, bake, bosh. And ambient dust is the dust, and it looks like that. So this one you just mix in with whatever color you're setting up with just a mix RGB set to multiply, and then it will just multiply the dark information, so it just gives it a bit more dusty texture. Okay, so let's say you've got your maps. Now you want to displace it. So all we need to do is select this copy, and we want to add, it's already got a subdivision surface set to 6, and then add a Displace Modifier and click New. So we get a new texture. And now before we put the image in, I know these are the settings we'll need. So under coordinates you want UV, because we've UV mapped it, obviously. And direction RGB to XYZ, because we're using color information. Set the space to global and mid-level to 0. Alright, now if you go over to the texture properties tab and then click open, scratch your nose, and then where would I find Dispy? There you are. So wherever you put Dispy your file, that's what you want, and then it should straight away come out pretty much looking like how we want it to. So if we head into viewport, now you can see we can make this a bit stronger. Although actually with RGB to XYZ, I think I have to go negative. Yes, I don't know why. If you go positive, so let's say strength 4, it's going the wrong way. I don't know why it does that. So you've got to go negative 4 or 3 or 2, negative 2.5. There we go. Okay, so now we have that physical geometry right there. And if we head over to viewport render, we can now just add the rest of the maps to this. So I'm going to just click on the, and when you're done, by the way, with your maps and you want to go back, there you go, reconnect here, another control shift click. So I believe I've already got the map set up, but I'll quickly show you. So click new, and then we get a new principled, and we want an image. You've got the shift A, but I'm doing it in my quick menu, but we want 2 image textures for this one. We want a texture coordinate, which is there, and a mix RGB, which is there. This is my quick menu, but I'm telling you what you need, you can find it, and a color ramp, which is right here. So, oh, and an ambient occlusion, which I believe is in input right at the top. We want to plug UVs. We want to use UV mapping for these 2 image nodes here, and in this one we will use the one I prepared earlier, which was Rock Col 4K. So as I showed you the process of how I baked the color map, it's the same. So Rock Col and then Rock Bump 4K, and then if we plug this into here, we're going to need a bump node right there. We're going to plug the bump into the height input and normal into normal, and then this is for the we need a 3rd image texture. We don't need ambient occlusion, so just duplicate this bad boy, shove the UVs in there like that, and then this one, did I bake the dust? Yes, I did. Put the rock dust into probably a color ramp. Put the color ramp into the 2nd port of the mixed rugby, or actually connect it, that will help. And put this one into the top, mix that up, and then we want multiply, and plop that into here. Okay, so now we've got that added dustiness, and if you want you can control that with a bit more black make it darker, all that. Look at that, looks like it's been on fire and that. It's been burned. Yeah, so there you go. That's how you get pretty much the same thing, but you actually got it as physical geometry instead, with its own set of maps that you can take elsewhere. And what I would do as a bonus in this situation, to make it, you've got to make it actual physical geometry, because you see, if we still press that, it's still the flat plane. So we want to Control A when you hover over your subdivision, and then Control A over the displace. And now when you tab, it's geometry. And if that's too much geometry, which is quite a lot, just add a decimate. And I found 0.1 pretty much does the job under the ratio, but we'll go 0.2. Press enter. Then apply that with Control A. And bush. You've got the same thing, but this time it's all triangles. And way bigger triangles. So that's drastically reduced the faces needed to represent the same thing. So yeah, this is now, you can now take that and export it as an OBJ. FBX is the ones that I normally use. We've got all this. And as an extra bonus, you can then, if you want, muck around with Displace Modifier on top of that. So you could have, maybe click a new one, maybe put some Voronoi. Obviously the strength is awful, so we can drop the strength of that to about there. And then if I increase the size, like that. You can even change this one to RGB to X, Y, Z, and then it will do that. So you can get even crazier shapes that you can't do this with just the IRB. I mean, it does do in different directions. It's vector displacement, but this is something else. You can't really do that. So you've got even more options to change, you know, what you've made in the IRB. You can even change it even further. And that is, in a nutshell, the lot. That's all you need to know, I'm pretty sure. Let me just double check. Covered that. Disby, colors. Got your colors in. Yeah, that's your lot. That's how you get your textures baked, and now you get yourself some funky geometry like that. It's even different than its original, but still retains everything else. I mean, that's a bit too much, but you know what I mean? Do you know what I mean? Wicked. Okay, have fun with that. I hope you enjoy it. You can have loads more fun now. Mess around with Displace Modifiers, just layering them stuff, or just picking vertices and moving them about. It's your call. I hope you have tons of fun. I've been Nick, you've been you. Until next time. Bye-bye.